So I've been seeing a lot of discussion and discourse online about whether we're about to enter like another video game crash, like a video game industry crash. And I don't think that is quite true. I just want to make a quick discussion video on it, just talking about it. But I think it's less that the video game market is heading for a crash, and I think it's just consumers are getting smarter with their money. Let's face it, a lot of these big established AAA studios, they have been really pushing the envelope on what it is to call a game and what is an acceptable amount of monetization. Like, everyone knows loot boxes suck, microtransactions aren't fun. I would rather just pay $60 for a game and then just play it and not have to worry about any extra stuff. But obviously that hasn't been the case for a while for most of these big developers. There's obviously some developers that still have some respect for themselves, I guess. They would rather just put out a good game with one price tag. I mean, we look at like something like Elden Ring. There's no microtransactions or anything like that. Just a good game sold amazing. And I think overall the consumers are they're more keen on what is considered like too much. I think it's just because gaming culture has gotten so big that the ideas that used to be only reserved for like the more hardcore audience, it's kind of like trickled up. Because, I mean, for the most part, for like a while there, and there still are people like this, but they like really only buy like the new Call of Duty, new sports game, GTAs, that type of, like those really, really big titles. That's all they really focus on. But I think we're seeing a trickle up of the mindset of playing smaller development games, indie games, that type of stuff. Especially with like the explosion of Pal World and Helldivers 2, which are both smaller studio games. I believe they both have publishers, so they aren't indie, but I think the general gaming consumer is willing to try out new things, and I think that's a very big detriment to the long existing AAA studios that just didn't respect their customer base. And I think that's part of the reason why people started branching out in the first place. If they weren't dissatisfied with the products they were receiving, they wouldn't have started looking for a bunch of other stuff. And I think there's a lot of knowledge being tossed around and opinions tossed around whenever a game does get released. Like, review aggregators are super popular. Something like Metacritic is seen by a lot of people, or just like IGN, Facebook. Like, there's reviews being thrown around everywhere. I think something like this, people look at this and they are not willing to spend as much money on video games. I mean, we are in a awkward time when it comes to economic comfort, and people are not as willing to dump as much money into a game if they can only really realistically afford, one game every so often. They're gonna do some research before they pull the trigger on buying something. And I think we can also see that in something like movies as well. Rotten Tomatoes, if it's certified fresh or if it's rotten, can really, as this article says here, can really make or break a film's success. And the consumer in general is just getting much smarter, sort of, because I think films also were getting in a very stagnant spot. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but a lot of people were getting sort of burnt out by the end of like Phase 3 Marvel stuff, but they were still invested in the whole Infinity Saga and what it was leading up to with Infinity War and Endgame, that they stuck through it. And that's how I was too. I caught up on Marvel movies. I was watching them as they come out. And then Infinity War and Endgame came out, and I was like, cool, I have no motivation to watch Marvel anymore. And then on top of that, they started asking us to watch TV shows, and it was just getting to a lot. It's the same way with like Star Wars. If you ask me to watch a movie maybe like once every 3 or 4 months, sure, I can keep up with your cinematic universe. You're just asking a couple hours from me for like one night. I can keep up with that type of cinematic universe. When you're asking me to watch this movie, then watch this 8 to 10 episode TV show, I was like, I only have so much time in the day. I work a full-time job. I do not want to have to work to keep up with your cinematic universe. So that's another big thing. But yeah, I don't see any sort of video game crash happening. We are in such a Like, the video game industry is just so big. I think it's a little bit too big to fail because the demand is there. If EA falls or Ubisoft falls or something like that, Warner Brothers keeps pushing live service BS. It is what it is. The consumer's eventually going to get sick of it. Let me look for a tweet really quick. So there was recently a tweet that went around. I'm pretty sure this article covers it. But Warner Brothers, the publisher for Hogwarts Legacy, and remind you, Hogwarts Legacy was the best-selling game of 2023. As far as I know, I didn't play it. It was a good single-player experience, fun gameplay loop, one price tag, and you just got to play it. Well, they weren't exactly happy with it, and they want Hogwarts Legacy 2 to be a live service game, which it seems like they're completely ignoring what people liked about the game in the first place. They just want to milk as much money as they can per game, and people see this. People will see this. I mean, we see stuff like Suicide Squad that, let's look up the Metacritic on that one. This is just a bland game that threw in live service stuff, and people just didn't care, and it was just a grind to pad out playtime and try to get you to spend more money. But if you look at something like Helldivers 2, this is a live service game, but look how many people are playing it. Look how many people are having positive experiences with it. It's not that live service is bad. It's greedy live service is bad. And I think that's what it boils down to. They've just been so transparent about their greed and wanting to milk as much money out of people as possible that people found out. People are smart. Like, you know, they might say stupid stuff on Twitter, they might say stupid stuff online or spend their money on stupid stuff, but at the end of the day, no one likes spending money on shit that they don't like. And it got to a point, I think we reached a boiling over point, and that's where we're at now. And instead of money going to these big AAA games, they are going to smaller dev teams like Pal World, Hellblade, Baldur's Gate 3 was also a smaller team if I recall correctly. Larian Studios, they aren't a big team. This was a published game, so it's like they're still getting funding from like a bigger company, and they're going through that same like AAA process, but just at a smaller scale. And I think when you do stuff at a smaller scale, you're more likely to take risks. Risks are something that the suits and shareholders don't like, so they want to push out something safe and something that will print a lot of money, but people like change, people like new things. Like, people got burnt out on the MCU, as we were talking about earlier. People probably were burnt out of the standard AAA cycle, and they want something new as well. And I think if the AAA studios want to survive, they should be taking on more projects, smaller teams, higher risks with more creativity. But as we know, I mean, when you're only trying to appease like executive suite members and shareholders, they don't really care about the creative process. They just want money. So we'll see if these AAA studios can adapt, and if they don't, I don't think any of us are going to miss them. So yeah, let me know what you thought about this video. I don't normally make more general gaming stuff. I was more focused on fighting games, but hey, I'm trying to spread my wings a little bit. Let's see how it goes. As always, keep pressing buttons and have a good rest of your day.